Horror games continue to be one of the most popular genres in the medium, and it seems to be showing no signs of slowing down in the near future. Horror games encompass multiple subgenres, ranging from psychological horror to survival horror and, of course, action horror. This feature will focus on the latter of these horror types as we run down 15 of the best action horror games of all time. Left 4 Dead 2. Despite being over 10 years old at this point, Left 4 Dead 2 still stands tall as one of the best co-op shooter experiences on the market. And a lot of that timeless charm can be attributed to the amazingly fun core gameplay where you and your squad mates face waves upon waves of increasingly tough zombies. The director system dynamically adjusts difficulties and encounters to keep you on your toes, which ensures that the game isn't veering too far from its horror roots. The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us Part 2 marries a smooth combat loop with a heart-wrenching story about the never-ending cycle of revenge and the brutality that exists in this post-apocalyptic world. Ellie is a lot more nimble than Joel from the first game, which allows her to quickly scale ledges, hide in tall grass, and under cars, which in turn makes the stealth action combat a lot more dynamic than before. Encounters also take place in large arenas with multiple points of entry, and you can tackle each scenario in a host of different ways, making it a great mix of action and horror. Alan Wake Remastered. Alan Wake remains one of the most memorable experiences of the last couple of generations, thanks to its unique story that continues to get weirder as you delve deeper into the depths of the dark place. Remedy's excellent world-building and storytelling chops are displayed in full force, and the gameplay also features tons of action as you dodge, focus beams of light, and shoot down villagers in increasingly complex encounters. The remastered version does a good enough job of cleaning up the visuals and introducing quality-of-life changes, which makes this experience all the more palatable for a modern audience. Dead Space Remake. Dead Space Remake is an excellent reimagining of this horror classic, and EA Motive has done an excellent job of smoothing out the jagged edges and making the remake undoubtedly the best way to experience this story. The gameplay revolves around exploring different compartments of the USG Ishimura while dealing with the many types of necromorphs that lie in your path. Between an improved dismemberment system and plenty of weapon types to choose from, there's a lot of dynamic elements to the action of Dead Space, which makes it a worthy candidate for this list. Dying Light 2. Dying Light 2 expands upon the concepts of the original in new and interesting ways and throws us into a larger and more complex playground with the city of Villedor. Dying Light 2 doesn't induce much sense of horror while you are slashing through zombies and climbing buildings during the daytime, but it can certainly become a lot more terrifying if you venture out at night, where powerful zombie variants litter the streets in great numbers. Of course, there are more rewards if you survive the nights, but that wouldn't be a cakewalk by any means. The Evil Within 2. Tango Gameworks delivered an excellent sequel with The Evil Within 2. Released back in 2017, the game excellently builds upon the foundations of the original with a new open-world setting and improved gameplay. There are plenty of horrifying sequences and encounters littered throughout the game, and players are encouraged to veer off the beaten path and search every nook and cranny to get the most out of the experience. The Thing, the video game. Developed by the now-defunct Computer Artworks, The Thing is a video game adaptation of the 1982 film of the same name. The game features an interesting set of mechanics, including but not limited to players being able to recruit NPCs to their cause, and the fear-trust system, which determines how obedient your virtual companions are going to be. Add to that solid third-person shooting combat and a variety of enemy designs, and The Thing becomes a game that's unmissable for horror fans. Killing Floor 2. Killing Floor 2 takes a ton of inspiration from Left 4 Dead 2 and creates a co-op zombie shooter that is chaotic in the best way possible. The gameplay revolves around using a variety of weapons to mow down entire armies of undead, and the game has received a ton of post-launch updates to fix issues and add substantial amounts of content, making it a game that one can spend dozens upon dozens of hours playing. Bloodborne. From Software's 2015 release, Bloodborne stands tall as one of its best works yet. The game is an action RPG at heart with a ruthless combat system and fierce bosses that gatekeep each new area. But Bloodborne is also equal parts a horror game. Right from the dark color palette used in the environments to the nightmare-inducing enemy designs, and the ambushes that lie waiting around every corner, there's a distinct sense of threat that pervades each step you take in this labyrinthian world. Bloodborne is a masterclass in mechanical horror design and is a game that should be experienced by every horror fan. HELLBLADE: SENUA'S Sacrifice. HELLBLADE: SENUA'S Sacrifice tells the story of Senua as she ventures into the darkest depths of Helheim in an effort to get back her dead lover's soul. Developer Ninja Theory did an amazing job of depicting her twisted psyche with all sorts of murals plastered on the game world and a corruption system that threatens to wipe out your entire progress if you die too many times. The combat is also a desperate dance for survival as you swiftly dodge attacks and unleash a flurry of strikes upon the enemy. Almost every element of game design works in tandem to create an unsettling experience, which makes Senua's Sacrifice a game unlike any other. Dead Island 2. After enduring a long development cycle and multiple developer changes, Dead Island 2 was finally released earlier this year to some great reviews. The game does a great job of recreating the brutal melee action that made the first game such a fun time. Players get a ton of flexibility in how they choose to build out their character with skills and use an appropriate weapon to mow down zombies in style. Much like Dying Light, it's also a more action-focused experience, but there are moments of pure horror peppered throughout the game as well. Eternal Darkness: SANITY'S Requiem. This 2002 classic still stands tall as one of the best games in its class, and a lot of that praise can be attributed to the game's tendency to get under your nerves and make you uneasy from the core. The game features some sanity effects that can do all sorts of weird things to your system, like reducing the volume automatically, spewing blood on walls, or shifting the camera perspective to a tilted frame. It's a unique experience that deserves to be tried out by horror game fans. Manhunt. Rockstar Games' Manhunt isn't a traditional horror game where you face ghosts or otherworldly creatures, but instead you are the hunter who has to prey on other human enemies. The horror in Manhunt comes from the bloody executions that you can do, and all of this gets accentuated by its dull color palette and dimly lit environments. This kind of action horror is really distinct in Manhunt, and fans ought to give this one a try. Resident Evil 7: Biohazard. Resident Evil 7 transports us to the mysterious Baker Mansion, and that kickstarts a horrifying journey against all sorts of demonic abominations. Played in the first-person perspective, RE7 puts a lot of emphasis on anticipating the horror as you slowly trudge through creaky mansion floors and muddy swamps, but when the enemies do appear and bullets start to fly, RE7 is just as brutal as it is horrifying, with memorable boss fights that just keep on escalating until the credits finally roll. Silent Hill 2. Konami's Silent Hill 2 is considered to be one of the best games in its ilk, and for good reason. The story of James finding out what happened to his wife is filled with all sorts of twists and turns that keep you glued to the edge of your seat. With bone-chilling atmosphere and plenty of action sequences, Silent Hill 2 does a good job of switching up its gameplay to keep you engaged for hours on end. If you find this one a bit too dated for your taste, we would recommend waiting until the remake drops in the near future. And that brings us to the end of the video. A quick request: we upload new videos every single day, and if you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing. It really helps us out. Also, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon so that you can receive daily video updates. Thanks for watching.